Hi, Todd VanDenburg here with VanDenburg Capital Management and another uncommon sense update. So since last week's update, the markets have been trading within a range. For example, the Dow's been trading between 23,000 and 24,000. That's a 1,000-point move over the last week. Right now, it sits right in between those two numbers at about 23,450. And we expect to see these kinds of movements, 1,000-point swings, as we try to come to grips with exactly how long are things going to continue to be shut down, and what is the long-term economic impact going to be to having shut people down for as long as they will have been shut down. In other news, we had the Paycheck Protection Program funding pass through the Senate. In the next day or so, we should see the House approve it, and it'll be signed by the White House. This is really good news because there were a lot of people who had applications to receive this assistance who were shut out because the original tranche of funding was spent in just a matter of about 10 days. So it'll be good as this new funding, it's roughly $300 billion, gets into the system, because really all this money is intended to do is to keep money in small businesses that they would have been able to otherwise earn if they weren't shut down, in order to make payroll. Because we're trying to keep the unemployment rate, with now 22 million people having filed for unemployment in the last month. We're trying to keep those people that are unemployed to as small a number as possible, given the fact that we are restricting economic activity in the United States. So as we get more information, I'll certainly share it, but that's not really what I wanted to talk about today. Today's topic is about something that happened yesterday that had never happened before, and that is, you may have seen the news, oil prices went negative for the first time in history. And that's a little bit true, but there's a lot more to it. So really what happened is oil futures prices went negative because the price that we often see online, depending on where you look, is the price of the futures contract. And these futures contracts have expirations. And yesterday was the expiration of the May contract. And what happened throughout the day is, normally the people that trade these futures contracts are not oil people. They're financial people who are speculators, and they're trying to make money buying and selling these contracts, but they don't actually want to take possession of the oil. And what happened yesterday is that because it was the expiration date, we found these contracts falling in price because the speculators that owned the contract, that never wanted to own the oil, couldn't find anybody to buy the contract from them. And the law of supply and demand says, if you're trying to sell and you can't find buyers, you have to keep lowering your price until you can find a buyer. And at various points in the day yesterday, not only did the price fall to zero, people that were holding these futures contracts were offering to pay people to take the contract and the oil off of their hands. Because the last thing somebody who's in an office building in New York City, trading futures contracts, has the ability to do, it's to take physical possession of oil. So what happened is, these futures contracts got to the point where those speculators were paying people to take the oil off their hands. Now, we're not going to hear anything about this in the media, but imagine if you had a place to stick all this oil, you could have purchased you could have gotten 1 million barrels of oil yesterday, either for nothing, and in some cases people would pay you to take it off their hands. And if you had a place to put it for 6 months or a year, odds are you'd be able to take that oil that you didn't have to pay anything for, or somebody paid you to hold on to, and you could make 30, 40, 50 million dollars on that 1 million barrels of oil. I don't have a place to put it, but if anybody watching this video does, please contact me, because if this ever happens again, I'm going to buy up as much oil as I can get my hands on, and I'll happily share the profits with you, because there was a lot of wealth changing hands yesterday, it was going out of the hands of the speculators and into the hands of people that actually have the ability to store the oil. Now, June futures contracts are trading down now as well because we are reaching the point of not having enough place to store the oil that we are producing in the country. Oil production last week fell by the greatest amount in history, like it fell by like 900,000 barrels because drillers are just not drilling for oil, as evidenced by this thing called the rig count. There's a company that keeps track of how many rigs in the United States and around the world are actually drilling for oil. We have half as many rigs drilling for oil today as we did last year. And I would expect if this shutdown continues for 2, 3, 4, 5 months, that we're going to see the number of people drilling for oil go to levels that we haven't seen since before we even found oil in the ground for the first time. Because it makes no sense to drill for oil if you can't make a profit. And we're really close to that number right now as oil trades in the $20 to $30 a barrel, especially for Brent crude. So that's a lot about oil, but it was really fascinating yesterday to watch the speculators squirm as they tried to get rid of these contracts because they never had a plan to take possession of this oil. It's not a good sign for the economy, but if there is one bright side of this, the US government is buying up oil right now and sticking it in the national reserves at prices that they've never been able to buy oil for before. And that's amazing because normally, the US government buys high and sells low. And in this case, they're filling up the strategic reserve with really inexpensive oil that in the future, should we need it, we'll be able to bring it back out and the US government won't be taking a loss on it. So if anybody has any questions about this or anything else going on in the economy or their own personal finances, please just send me a message, email me, reply to this update. I'll be happy to answer any questions anybody has. But that was your update. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give us a like, give us a share, and I'll be back soon with another Uncommon Sense update. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to be the first to hear of more Uncommon Sense updates like these, please click the subscribe button below. We'd really appreciate it. Thanks again.